Well, the United Nations says it's a challenge of historic proportions. Roughly 70 million in some 45 countries do not know when or from where they'll get their next meal. The UN estimates the crisis is most urgent in Yemen, Somalia, South Sudan, Nigeria. Parts of Kenya are included. The UN's humanitarian chief says more than 20 million face starvation and famine.
All 4 countries have one thing in common: conflict. This means that you have the possibility to prevent and end further misery and suffering. It is all preventable. It is possible to avert this crisis, to avert these famines, to avert these looming human catastrophes.
I'd like to begin.
The UN estimates it needs about $5 billion in humanitarian aid pledges by July. Uganda hopes to receive some of that money. CGTN's Soni Methu reports it's overwhelmed by refugees crossing the border from South Sudan.
A week ago, it was 2,000 a day. Now, it's 4,000. Streaming across the border to flee fighting and starvation back home. There's no fighting here in northern Uganda, but then there's little else either. Grace Ochola says she and her 5 children are starving.
We have no water here. It's rocky. We only eat beans. The ration, we use it to trade for other needs. But it has been a month now since we received any.
Relief efforts are simply overwhelmed. The UN had expected around 300,000 refugees to come into Uganda throughout 2017. Almost half that number has come through in less than a month. MVP is one of the newest settlements here. Set up barely 3 weeks ago, it's already full beyond capacity. Rations have been cut. Children are showing signs of malnutrition. Tensions with the local community are rising. Uganda already has done far more than any other nation to help. But it's taking the strain, and almost a third of its own population faces food shortages.
To settle refugees in these areas, you also have to figure out how to help the host communities, because that will encourage peaceful coexistence between the refugees and the citizens in that area. If you only continue assisting refugees, then the host communities will begin to feel jealousy.
The UN is seeking around $560 million this year. Uganda is also hoping its neighbors will pressure for peace in South Sudan to stem the flow of refugees. Because this relief mission is so stretched now, it must soon snap. Soni Methu, CGTN, Uganda.